Welcome to another edition of MoxieTalk, where we give you an intimate look into the courage, character, and defining moments of today's most inspiring individuals. I'm Kirt Jacobs, host of MoxieTalk, where previous guests have included leaders from the world of politics, business, culinary, sports, entertainment, art, law, community activism, and philanthropy. Today, our 473rd guest in our series, we welcome Jay Cobb. He's the head coach of Trinity High School's football team since 2021, after serving as Trinity's defense coordinator since 2014, and fresh off his team's decisive 2023 state championship win over Bryant Station at Kroger Field in Lexington, Kentucky. And he's the former Somerset High School football coach. Now, in 2021, Cobb took over a program, listen to this, that won its record 27th state championship, and he replaced the legendary coach Bob Beatty, who won, wait for it, 254 games, 15 state titles in his 21 seasons before retiring. Now, Cobb is a native of Webster County in western Kentucky and got his starting coaching as an assistant at Henderson County in 1981. He has a 149-139 career record in 26 seasons as a head coach at 5 schools: South Hopkins, Webster County, Knott County Central, and Somerset and Campbellsville. Cobb led the Briar Jumpers to 3 regional titles and 3 state semifinals in 1999, 2005, and 2006, and won 4 district titles at Somerset and was 4 times, listen to this, named the District Coach of the Year. Cobb was an assistant coach at Westbrook and Beaumont, Texas in 2013, and when former Trinity head coach and legend Bob Beatty began a national search for a new defensive coordinator at Trinity, he picked Cobb. And in those 7 seasons prior to being named head coach, Cobb helped the Shamrocks win 5 state titles. And after his impressive coaching record and his coming off his first state win as head coach, we are honored that he is taking his very valuable time to sit with us today and tell us his human journey. Welcome to MoxieTalk, Coach Cobb. I'm really looking forward to it.
I appreciate the offer, and anytime we can get together and talk about the kids in Trinity, it's a good thing.
That's a good thing. So what drives you to excel in your area of expertise, you know?
Well, I think everybody thrives on the competition. Fact that you want to pitch yourself against other coaches, you want to see if you can put your kids in a position to be successful and to win. And that's what the other guys try to do too, but that's always going to be the driving force behind most coaches.
Well, what I find interesting about, I'm a native Louisvillian, so I kind of get the familiarity between Trinity and the other school, which I won't mention, at least not yet. It's a business. I mean, it's a serious undertaking. It's not just we need a football team. I mean, there's tradition, there's legacy, which brings with it its own set of issues, good, bad, and ugly. What is that part of it feels like now that you've been coach for a while, head coach?
Well, I think, and you referenced the hire of me coming here as a defense coordinator. When I came here and Bob put me in this position, I told him he had to give me some autonomy on that side of the ball, and he did. I think that's what attracted the people at Trinity to select me. And I didn't seek out the position, but when they came to me with it, I definitely was humbled and honored that they would offer it to me. But Trinity is a very, very special place, and you have to honor the traditions of the past, but at the same time, you got to meet that standard that has been set here by multiple coaches and a lot of players that have put in a lot of hard work.
What do you think the primary difference is, in your opinion or experience, between high school football players, collegiate football players, and NFL? It's kind of a 3-layer question, and maybe there's a lot more similarity than there is difference, but I was just curious your take. Because at your level, even though it's high school, it's pretty exceptionally competitive.
It is, especially at our level and the schedule that we play each and every year. The programs are elite, and our program is elite, we feel like, and that's something that's special. But I think all 3 levels, it's passion that the players have for the game and the love of the game that kind of draws them to it in the beginning. And then I think a lot of college guys would tell you today, and pro guys would tell you, money ruins that. And it eventually will come down to the high school level at some point. Everything filters down. But right now, kids get in because they love the game, they want to play. I feel like that most of your college guys and pro guys, when you talk to them, they'll tell you that's why they started. But they also learn very quickly, as you referenced, it's a business.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw some questions at you that you've had to deal with as a head coach and a leader and CEO of young men. You know, we live in an age of lots of technology, instant access to information. Images can go out that maybe should or shouldn't go out. How have you dealt with that as a leader and the evolution of that? Obviously, when you first got into this career path, it really wasn't a thing, and now it's a very big thing.
Boy, you're exactly. I think they were doing cave drawings when I first got into it. Social media has totally changed the game. All of our kids are very well versed in it.
Sure.
Multiple platforms.
Yeah.
So you try to monitor it the best you can. The fact that I have several young coaches that are not that far removed, we monitor what the kids do on that level. We also try to educate them on how to use it, and you do have to use it. What some people don't realize, college recruiting has started to rely a great deal on social media and making a connection with a player, also getting highlights of the player. And that is almost circumvented the relationship between college coaches and high school. So social media is a necessary evil. The problem is there are people on there that don't have good intentions, and those are the ones you have to be careful of. And we try to educate our guys on it. Matter of fact, we had Jody Dimling in last week to talk to our young men about a social media platforms and about profiles and how they should behave on it and how they shouldn't.
And then I'm curious your take on this, and hopefully this hasn't happened, but I mean, have you ever had a situation where someone may take a picture of a player that maybe they do or don't play football, but for whatever reason they have some animus or issue with that particular player and they want to embarrass them? You know, how do you deal with that?
Well,
I'm just curious.
I
know this isn't football.
Well, I hate the fact you brought that up.
Yeah.
We haven't had that happen yet, knock on wood. The kids, again, I think the fact that we're kind of educating them, and at Trinity High School, and I think a lot of guys do this, but you don't do anything that's going to embarrass you, your family, or Trinity.
Yeah.
And if you think it is, it probably is. If you're thinking, I don't know if I need to pull the trigger on this or not, then you probably don't need to pull the trigger.
And there's consequences. I mean, it's
always is.
Yeah.
And that they will not be good if something goes to that level. That could be a dismissal from the team and different things.
Maybe even ultimately the school.
Exactly.
Whom do you credit most influential in your life, Coach? And it could be more than one, personal or professional.
Well, there's several. I think anybody that has had any success in any area can look back at several people. My guy is my dad. I mean, he was the inspiration for our family. He was the patriarch of the family, loved football, but he was a doctor that was a frustrated football coach. You know,
Right. I like
and
that.
what's funny about that is when I told him, you know, I'm going to put off. He wanted me to go to law school. I did a pre-law routine in college and all of that. And he said, you know, you don't want to go into coaching. And I said, well, Dad, I love it. I got a passion for it. He said, well, you don't want your livelihood to be dependent upon a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. And there's a lot of sense to that, you know, and everything else. But I told him I've got to do it. I've got to get it out of my system. And here I am almost 40 years later. Yeah. But I told him I was only going to do 5 years. I'm sorry, Dad, I lied. But I didn't know I was lying at the time,
Sure.
you know. But he definitely influenced me tremendously. He's a guy that if I had a chance to sit down again with him, he passed in 1988.
Wow.
He would love to have seen this and been a part of this. He just loved the game so much. So, you know, he's the guy that really influenced me more than anybody else. High school football coach Richie Hughes had a lot of influence on me too. And I've got so many people that I could reference, but those two guys are probably the most.
I'm going to throw another one of these questions because, you know, there's so many layers in your style of leadership because of the age range you're dealing with. How do you handle, obviously don't mention names, an overbearing parent that may assess that their child is very exceptional and they need more attention, or the other that they're not as exceptional as they think they are, and maybe they don't even ultimately need to be on the team. You know, when you have a dynamic like you do at Trinity that's very competitive, I would argue most high school programs probably don't have these kind of dynamics. But I was curious, as a leader, how do you deal with that? I mean, it's got to be a sensitive area.
First and foremost, if a parent has feelings strong enough to where they contacted you, that's a hurdle that they've jumped over, because a lot of parents will think it, but will never act on it. But if a parent has acted on it, it's important to them.
Right.
So from my standpoint, it's important that I give them at least a hearing. I need to bring them in. I need to sit them down. I need to let them vent to me, and sometimes that's what it is, but most of the time it's just telling me what's on their mind, and I let them get that out of their system. And then I try to give them, and I do this with kids too, an honest appraisal of where their young man is. This is where he is competitively. This is the reason maybe he's not playing as much, or he didn't win that job, or whatever didn't happen that made you want to come in here and talk about that. I kind of give them an honest assessment. Sometimes, you know, that's all they want. They want to know where they stand. The thing at Trinity, and you mentioned Trinity, it's a little bit unique, is we have a lot of legacy parents, you know, that played there, and they have their son or grandson, they want them to play football. So what we get is somebody that pushes the young man into the game, and the young man really doesn't have a passion for that game. And maybe that parent is trying to live vicariously through the player. And I've had to tell more than one, with a father sitting in the chair and a son sitting in the chair, look at the son and say, you need to tell your father how you feel about football and why maybe you have thought about not playing. And I tell the parent that he's going to be the one going through it. So you need to listen to your son, and you need to hear him out. And usually once that happens and they have that hearing, they're able to vent, things will go to a little bit calmer situation.
That's great advice all around, I think.
Well,
to the player, the parents.
Yeah, it's worked for me, but you know, I would say some parents would probably say no, you know, it wasn't enough, you know.
I'm curious your take on, you know, teaching co-ed, one gender school. What's that impact like? What is that dynamic like? What are the advantages or potential disadvantages? I'm just curious. I'm trying to get that aspect of it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you won't find many people, educators, and I have been an educator in every sense of the word. I've taught for a long time. I've been dean of students. I've been an assistant principal. I've been an athletic director, a head football coach, a principal. I've held every position you can hold in school. Most research will tell you that when you have one sex going to school, they perform better.
Okay.
And that's just research. That's not Jay Cobb saying that. I think Catholic education is a tremendous education, and the schools that provide that in Louisville do a great job of it. I'm, you know, biased. I think Trinity does the best job of it. But the thing is kids come to school, and the ladies in the room can attest to this. They're not worried about what their hair looks that day because there's no girls there to impress. They're there and they're ready to get up and go to school, and they're putting that tie on, even though they don't like to wear it, but they're putting that tie on, and they're concentrated for the most part on what they need to do for the day. And the drama that you get sometimes when you have relationships in a school, things like that, are not there. So in many ways, it's a positive, you know, but we do have students, football players, that will be attracted to our program, but they won't come because it is not a co-ed situation. So it kind of cuts both ways.
Okay. What do you consider to be the most defining moment of your life, Coach? And it can be more than one, personal or professional.
Yeah, and you know, the most defining moment probably for me, and I would put it into a personal category and into a professional one. Personal for me was having my wife having our two sons, you know, Andrew and Tyler. And probably the most proud I am of anything of the job that my wife has done putting up with me, and then also being a coach's wife, you have to put up with quite a bit, but she took the main role in raising our children. That's one of the things that, from a coaching standpoint, if you can get them to high school, then they're yours again. I coached both of my sons.
Yeah.
And it was fun. We had a good relationship with it.
That is really great.
And everything else. But, before that, Mom had to take care of a lot of things and everything else. So having children was probably the most defining personal thing for me. In terms of professional, probably the Trinity job. I think being named Trinity head coach, it's like I said, it was a humbling thing and a tremendously honored thing for me. I got a little emotional at the press conference because of that and because of the hard work that was put in. And I can't tell you how many people I had call me and well wishes and all of that and things, guys I hadn't heard from 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I had, you get the jokes, that the guy, I've coached at a lot of different places and tough places. I used to always tell Bob that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and coached at Blue Springs and then at Trinity High School, two of the best programs in the country. I took programs, my entire early career was known as a builder. And if a program was in trouble, people would call me. And that's funny I say that because I got a call 2 weeks ago from a guy in far west Kentucky at McCracken County wanting me to take a look at that program. And I said, I'm not leaving Trinity High School. You know what I mean? But that's how I kind of made my early career. But being named Trinity was kind of a culmination of a lot of hard work.
Well, I can kind of sense the emotion, and I'm not trying to make you emotional with this question, but how many people roughly were vying to replace Coach Beatty, who was a legend, still alive, by the way? I mean, you may not know that answer, but...
Well, I do. I know a little bit of it. They came to me and asked me if I wanted the job, and I said, well, I am definitely interested. I said, if you go through an exhaustive search, I'm not going to wait for 2 to 3 to 4 months and do this, but I said, you need to decide if you want me to do it or not. And what they did is they put together a screening committee, which was smart, and they decided they wanted to go ahead and interview me. And if the committee came back and said, yeah, he's our choice. Now, I'll be honest with you, I think that Rob Saxton, Rob Mullen, and everything else, to do what they knew needed to be done to replace a guy that had the kind of success Bob did. They needed somebody that was pretty comfortable in their own skin, and I am.
Yeah,
and
you are.
We competed against Bob for 7 years, offense and defense, and we on the defensive side always kind of prided ourselves on how we handled him. So again, it was something that we look forward to, and I say we because most of the staff stuck, and they were excited about getting in and trying to put a different stamp on it and everything else, and told the higher ups, Rob Mullen, that this is going to be a 3-year program. First 2 years are going to be tough, and they were, but still had success. I'm very proud of those first 2 teams, and this year did what I thought they were capable of doing after a little bit of an early shakeup. But again, came on, went 12-3, and won in a very convincing fashion towards the end of the year.
It was. So let me ask you this question. We've talked about the overbearing parent or the player that may not be passionate. Coaching staff, you're the leader. No names. 2 extremes. They're, for whatever reason, they lose the passion, they're a bad fit, and or they're overbearing. They cross the line. You've got egos in there, you've got testosterone, you're competitive, game environment, maybe it's practice, it's really hot out on the field. I could go on with all kinds of variables that might trigger somebody to act inappropriately. How do you deal with that? And I'm curious if you see that pattern continue, even though it's been addressed. Maybe you haven't had to deal with it. Hopefully you haven't.
Yeah, we pride ourselves at Trinity on coaching kids hard. And players know that when they come in. The main thing, as I tell young coaches all the time, we've got a very good coaching staff. And I'm very fortunate to have those guys. But, you know, I tell them, you can coach them hard if you love them up. If you let them know that you truly care about them, they're going to take that hard coaching and they're going to be okay. My thing to young coaches is, if you coach him hard all the time and he doesn't think you like him or that you have anything in store for him, he's cutting you out. He's not listening anymore. And if a player does that to you, a coach is totally ineffective. And so from a head coaching standpoint, if that happens, and I've had to let guys go for that reason. They were a little bit too overbearing. Maybe language was a little bit too strong all the time. One can slip occasionally, but you know, if you get out there and you're making it personal towards a kid, you're not going to coach for me. You know, now the thing is that we want you to get the most out of that player, and to do that, sometimes you have to be hard and tough. But again, if the kid knows you care about him, you can do that. If you haven't built that foundation, you can't coach him that way. I thought you were going in a little bit different direction.
Well, go ahead. You can ask me a question.
Well, here's the thing. The hardest thing to do as a principal in a building or as a head coach is to manage those 13 guys.
Right.
You know, I mean, because all of them have egos. And I'm a big, you leave that ego at the door. You come in here, I'm going to tell you honestly what I think of you, and it may not be something that's ego building.
Right.
You know, so you need to take that in the constructive way that it's meant and everything else. But if you can't do that, you're on the wrong staff, and you need to go somewhere else, because we ask our players to do that. Put the team first. And that's the biggest challenge we have going into next year is, will this senior class, who's been a little bit selfish in the lower classes, will they learn from watching and from what's happening, start to play for one another and start to play for the team? And that's what our job as coaches is, try to get them to understand that and do that. And so that's going to be our task on moving forward.
So Trinity, for those that see this that aren't from Louisville, it opened in roughly the 1950s, mid-20th century. Was the intent when it opened to build this kind of dynamic football program, or was it an evolution and then maybe you had a certain coach that changed the whole tenor of the program and that set the stage and tone for decades to come?
That's a great question. I will tell you this, Trinity is not a football factory. It could be. You know, the administration has not taken it in that direction. It is a typical whole approach to education in school, and athletics and football is a part of it. We excel in many other sports. Baseball is on track, and knock on wood, I'd love to see them win a title again this year, but they're on track. Lacrosse is going to play for a title. So, you know, we've had success. Cross country won a title again this year, the same time that we did, and we recognize football and cross country together at the school. So we try to encourage all the sports to do well, and I think that's the way the administration approaches it. There's been some great coaches here. A lot of the older guys, I just went over and spoke. Oscar Brom got me in to go and talk to a group the other day with Paul Horning's old school, Flagier, and Snellenberger, who I think is one of the best coaches and probably one of the most underrated college coaches in history. But I talked to Flagier alumni, and it was really, really neat not to be one of the oldest guys in the room. You know what I mean? And I'm probably going to hear some flack for that. But, you know, I talked to them, and every one of the old guys would come up to me and they say, "You remember Jim Kennedy?" And I do. Coach Kennedy would come up and would eat at the high school. He's in his 90s. He's still living.
Wow.
But he did a great job in a football program. Those guys had so much respect for him, and it still held over, and much love. You know, for him. And then Dennis Lampley, I think, came in there and just did a great job. But you got guys in between. The Moore brothers were there for a while, too, really good football coaches. There were Roger Grunitson was there, won a state title there. There's other guys that have come in there and have won. Trinity's Trinity. It's not Bob Beatty. It's not Jay Cobb. It's not Jim Kennedy. It is Trinity, and I always say it all the time. It's a player's game, and players make coaches, and you got to put them in a position to be successful. But there's been a lot of great coaches there that have done that and have had tremendous success at Trinity. It will continue moving forward, but they're not a one-trick pony. We can excel in a lot of areas.
What do you consider to be your biggest professional triumph, Coach? It can be more than one personal
You
profession.
know, well, I'm going to tell you, people will say, and I guess it's true, I used to be one of these guys where, and I told Bob Beatty when he hired me in 14, I said, I'm not all about just winning rings. And what I meant by that, and we always struggled coming to agreement on that. I'm more about having relationships with players. I've got a wedding invitation to Ethan Hall's wedding in Jacksonville, Florida in November. Ethan graduated in 17, went on to play at Stetson, and just a great young man. But those relationships with those guys, I still have guys I coached 30 years ago that, will call me and talk with me and do that. Those are the achievements for me that are the greatest. The one that just, and it came out of the blue, young man's name was Joseph Smith. I coached him at Knott County High School in Eastern Kentucky. Tough area. And he came from one of the poorest areas. That football program and now it's been in existence for 40 plus years, but had never had a winning season. Never. And the second year, I took them to the playoffs and a non-losing season, 5-5. You'd have thought we had won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The next year, we went 8-2, I think, and the playoffs again. The next year after that, playoffs again, and I had a lot of success. Well, that young man was on that 5-5 team. He played guard, and we called him Joey Smith. The kids nicknamed him Gilligan. Yeah, not a good nickname. I kept telling Joey, do you know who Gilligan is? But he goes into the military, and he goes in just basically out of school. He's not officer's training or anything else. He becomes a colonel in the military and runs a base. Now, I had no idea. I had lost contact with him. He sent a Facebook request to my wife, which I'm not on Facebook, and said, I need to talk to Coach. It's important. And I thought something was wrong medically. He was taking over a Signal Corps base in Arizona, and he wanted me to watch the induction ceremony where he was taking over. And I was just blown away. He has since retired, and he is back in Eastern Kentucky. At his, as they say in Eastern, my home place. That's where he is. But those type of things are the things that are really important to me.
So did you fly out to the induction?
Well, no, I watched this during season.
That's what I want to make sure.
So I watched it on Facebook because they did it live. And I told him afterwards, he's taking over the Signal Corps, and all I could hear was wind. And I said, my God, man, you're taking over the Signal Corps. Can you not do better in turn? He's, Coach, just give me a chance, my first day, and everything else. But really proud of him. Really proud.
What does Jay Cobb consider to be the most challenging life lesson you've ever learned?
Man, there's a bunch.
Personal and professional.
Yeah. From a personal standpoint of just living and being happy in the place where your feet are. For a coach, it's real easy to always look at the next job. And every coach at every level does it. The grass is always greener. There's something that's wrong. I've told young coaches, don't do that to yourself. Enjoy where you are. And I don't think I did that as a young coach. I never got fired from a job, which was good, but I usually was 5 years and I moved on. I was always worried about complacency. And again, that will be one of the concerns going into this year. Is this football team going to be complacent coming off a state title? So, that's one of the lessons that I think was very hard for me to learn in coaching. And I think that's also a personal lesson.
What do you consider to be the biggest risk you've ever taken, Coach? Again, it could be more than one, personal, professional.
Well, that was easy, really, going to Texas. But I'll be honest, that was my plan all along. I wanted to retire here in Kentucky. And then after that, I wanted to go and coach 10 more years in either Georgia, Alabama, or Texas. Texas was the only place that was going to give me a reciprocal teaching agreement right out of the gate, which I'd already taught for 29 years. And so when I went down there cold. I did not know the individual I was going to interview with. And I went and interviewed 3 hours. At first, he was trying to hire me on the phone just with my resume, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I have to look at it. And it was a big 6A school in Beaumont. If you know anything about Beaumont, that is the home of the Motiva refinery.
Okay.
It's the largest refinery in the world. And it only operates, I will say this, 40% capacity. Wow. Which means it has a lot more capacity.
Yep.
But great people down there. I went down there, got hired, offered the job that same day after I interviewed. And I went down there and took the back end of a defense and was a co-coordinator. But the football was tremendous. The plan was to stay, and my wife screwed that up, and she knows it.
Sorry, I'm just interviewing.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't get her out of the state. She came down there. She was finishing up teaching here, and she came down there 5, 6 times, and the guys were begging me to stay. Principal was coming after. They wanted to give me the coordinator's job completely on the defensive side. And I was ready to do it because Texas, the difference in Texas and in Kentucky or any other place, Georgia, it is an extracurricular in Kentucky. It's a vocation in Texas. And it was a little bit different, and I probably would have stayed there. And that's what's really odd. The good Lord always has a plan.
Yep.
When a door shuts, another one opens, and the guy opening the door was Bob Beatty. He was looking, as you said in your intro, and you hit it right. He was in a national search to find a DC. And the funny thing, and I told this story the other day at Flagey, is first conversation didn't go well, which reputation for Bob is not exactly Mr. Personality, you know. And so when I got on the phone with him, he said, I'm not going to hire a DC from Kentucky. And I'm sitting there, and I paused a minute, and I said, you've got my resume. Did you read it? And he said, what do you mean, did you read it? I said, did you? I'm from Kentucky originally. Oh. Okay, you know, and then the second question was he wanted a guy that was going to run a 4.3, and I said, I'm a 3.4 guy. And he said, I want a 4.3, and I said, well, strike two. I said, I think we can end this conversation right now. And it did end, pretty much. And he called me when I was back on spring break, early March, and he said, I'm still looking, and he said, I still like what I see. I want to bring you in. And so I came in and interviewed for about 3.5 hours, not with Bob, with Andrew Coverdale. And ended up being about 15 guys in the room at the end of it. But they offered me the job that night. And my wife got lucky because I told her there's only one job that I would come back to the state of Kentucky for.
It's this one.
Trinity.
Wow.
And so she hit the lottery there, and we were able to stay in Kentucky, which made her happy and everything else. And I totally have not regretted it. I still miss my buddies in Texas, and we still talk quite often and everything else. But
who knows?
Yeah.
I'm saying it. He's not. The complacency thing might get you, but I'll just leave it at that. Man.
It can. Thanks for that. Yeah.
What do you consider to be your biggest mistake or disappointment or regret, depending on how you look at it in your journey? It can be more than one person.
Yeah, I could write a volume of.
At least you're honest. Some people say I've never
had
one.
I could go through and put a lot together because I made a bunch of mistakes. The first coaching job I ever took was at 25 years old as a head coaching job. And my high school coach, Jay, don't do it. And he said, you're not ready. He said, I love you, but you're not ready.
Yeah.
He was 100% right. Now, my father was telling me to take it. And his advice was, hey, you got to jump in the frying pan, you know, and
Right.
jump in the fire and all that. I shouldn't have taken it. Wasn't ready for it. And I learned a lot. That was what my dad was trying to tell me. The only way you're going to learn, son, is jump in there and really go. I would have preferred to basically be with somebody and had that mentor in my life. And that's what I try to do with young coaches now, is try to mentor them. And I always tell them, you know, my filing cabinet's open to you, which that's old and passe, you know.
Right.
Filing cabinet?
What is that?
So I tell them now, my flash drive, and well, that's old too, you
Yeah,
know.
right.
But my external hard drive, you know,
Right.
is open to you. But I wish I'd have had that when I was younger. I didn't. But I will tell you this, and you said it right. You know, I don't have regrets about that, because I think it made me kind of who I am, and it shaped me. And I think that's what the good Lord does to all of us. And, you know, I've been fortunate. He's always taken care of me. And, you know, like I said, that's the humility part of this. Don't get into thinking about, hey, it's all you, it's all
Right.
you. It's a lot of people and everything else that goes into making it.
What's the best piece of advice ever given to you, Coach? And again, it can be more than one, personal, professional.
Yeah, I tell you, is to always listen. Always listen, even if it's something that you don't think is going to be something you necessarily want to hear or need to hear. Listen to it and make your own decision. I think that's where we get in trouble today, is a lot of people don't listen anymore, and they want to eliminate voices. And we need to hear those voices, the idealistic voices, the practical voices, and we can meet a happy medium, you know, if we do that, but always listen.
When was the aha moment for you when you knew that this was the, you know, you said you went against your father's wishes.
Oh, I did. And it was not pretty out of the gate, you know, and everything else. But I think really once I got into it and the relationships that I started to build with staff, with kids, it's where I knew when that first young man comes back to you and says, you made a difference in my life. And I get that a lot, and I'm lucky that I do, but when somebody comes back and tells you that, every time you get that, it is a reward. That's the reason I kid my former players, and I call them has-beens when they show up, but a big smile on my face. What's this has-been doing? And I always tell them it's better than it never was, you know, and all that, but it makes me happy when those guys come back. Cole Spencer, who just signed a free agent with the Titans, played for us.
Wow, that's great.
17, and went to Western, went to Texas Tech, had a great career, and now he's getting an opportunity in pro ball. But he's been up there lifting in the mornings, and he and I talk, and I enjoy that and seeing those guys all the time.
That's good stuff. What is it like to be Coach J. Cobb, or J. Cobb in general?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I think it depends on whether you're a social media guy.
Yeah.
If you're a guy that likes to be on social media and like to read the message boards, you don't want to be J. Cobb, you know, because you're going to hear a lot of negativity. I seriously do not look at that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's totally out of my thinking. But don't kid yourself. Your bosses do, and other people do, and sometimes it influences them. That's a scary thing about social media today with that. But my life is multitasking. You know, when you and I were trying to make a connection to make this happen, there's a million things that are bouncing back and forth.
Right,
you know, when you open your email in the morning, you got 25 that, you know, are urgent that you need to get with. But I wouldn't change it. I mean, the multitasking end of it, you have to be able to kind of prioritize and do those things. But it's nice to be active and to be involved in that.
So, Coach, I was going to ask you this, and I'm really curious your take on it. You know, you've had several iterations in your career as educator and coach. What do you do when you see a person that continues to coach, and at least perception-wise from someone who's not in the industry or a coaching profession, and they just keep doing it? You know, they've won all the titles, they've money's probably not an issue anymore, and maybe they're collegiate, doesn't have to be football, it could be basketball, what have you, and they just keep doing it, you know, because I would argue that there's probably some unglamorous aspects to coaching. It's not all the the highlight reel.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, and I was just curious, what is that? Is that just?
Well, I think Saban said it when he got out down there, but he didn't want to see the program going down, and he wanted it to remain competitive. That's the reason. You know, as much pressure as people want to put on you about winning a state title at Trinity High School, I promise you, there's no greater pressure than the one that we put on ourselves, because we know, the kids know, the staff knows. I definitely know what the standard is. We talk about it all the time, and what that standard is and what the legacy is that you need to have. And we wanted to get back to that standard. And, you know, again, thankfully, it worked out. I mean, we did, and I thought this group, we won that state title with one Division, one AA commit. That's it. Everybody we play, you know, Bryan Station that we played in the state finals game had 5 or 6 Division I commits. Everybody that we played, Frederick Douglass the week before, 5 or 6 Division I commits. So our kids, that's what I'm proud of at Trinity. Our kids work their living tail off. And, you know, from the standpoint of our calendar and our schedule, it is demanding. And so our young men, we always call it, we grind.
Yeah.
They know how to grind. And you'll hear that talking about. But, you know, when you can't get kids to react to you, and I think that's what Saban was referring to, when you can't get them to respond to you anymore, it's time to get out. And that type thing. And the bell's ringing for me. You know, I know that. And the one thing I want to do is leave that program in a great place. And we have a tremendous freshman class that is going to be sophomores this next year. And this is going to be a tough year in terms of just getting our guys right. We're still going to be competitive, and we're in the conversation for the state title. But again, it's going to be incumbent upon our seniors to give us that quality leadership and to do what we need to do. But the program's in a good place right now.
So I love this next question. What do people get wrong about Coach J. Cobb or J. Cobb in general? You know, do you ever feel misunderstood?
Well, I think coaches are sometimes because, you know, they think you don't laugh, you don't smile, you're not, you know, because you put on that game face a little bit. But nobody likes to laugh and smile more than I do. I mean, you know, I will joke around with people, players, and everything else. I always tell players, you got to know when it's time to joke around, but when it's time to get to work, you better know when we're getting back to work. But I like to have a good time at what I'm doing. Every coach will tell you, every player will tell you, when you get out of it, the thing that you miss is the camaraderie. Yeah. You miss being around those young men. You miss being around your staff and your guys. You have such a good time with that. And that's what makes it special.
Well, there's a level of energy that's hard to replicate when you don't have all that frothing around.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
And the kids will always keep you on your toes, I promise you.
Can you define leadership or coaching in one word in the great English lexicon? I'll give you a phrase if you need it. Well,
I'm going to tell you, if you're describing our sport, if you're talking about football, and I say this to our players all the time, it's physicality. This is one of the few things left in today's world where you're still going to take a punch and really get physically exhausted and challenged, and you have to respond to that. And, you know, it makes young men become men. It turns them into men because it is something that they have to work through the adversity, whether it be physical or mental, and they have to work through that. And once they do, They don't realize it sometimes,
Sure.
but they're better men for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That kind of dovetails nicely into this question. I don't believe I've asked it. You know, we're in an era of wokeism, those that know what that term means. How has that impacted your ability to coach or not? What is kind of your assessment of how that's...
No, well, I don't disagree with you. We definitely are in that time period. I think it's starting to move on.
Okay.
I do say that. But here's the thing about sports, and I think it's true with all sports, and it's the reason it's still a special place. It's a meritocracy. And I tell kids all the time, and I tell parents, I really don't care who your father or your mother is, or what special circumstances you have. I have to put the best guys on the field.
Right.
And the other players know that. They want the best guys playing. And so everybody knows who can do and who can't do right now. Now, everybody should be trying to achieve that and get to that point, but maybe they're not there yet. But based on meritocracy is going to determine how successful you're going to be as a player or as a coach.
What if someone asked you, Coach, what is your why? In other words, what motivates you?
For me, it's the kids and the competition. It's twofold for me. I thrive on, I thrive on being around the kids and having conversations with them, challenging them, seeing them take that step to the next level. The thing that you get to see in high school, college guys get to see it too, but you get to see a kid mature.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, and it doesn't come quick enough sometimes, but you get them to see them mature, not only physically, but you see them mature mentally, and they start to understand, okay, I get it, and the light bulb goes on. That is what kind of drives you. Maybe we're getting to them. I always tell young coaches, when you're succeeding with a young player, when a young player comes to you and talks to you in your verbiage, when he is repeating what you're telling him to do, and he's asking an intelligent question, you still answer all those stupid ones too. But when he's asking you an intelligent question about his position or about the game, you're getting to that guy. And so that's very rewarding.
There was a time period in there where concussions were a big thing.
Huge.
And there was arguments that parents maybe shouldn't put kids into grade school ball, which leads to a program like Trinity and then collegiate level. How has that changed? Has it been impacted? Has it moved on, for lack of a better way to put it? Has it been addressed?
It has not moved on, but you're right about it being addressed. Now, I would say this, and I'm not a Roger Goodell fan, but they addressed it in almost a out of control way. They went too far with it, and that's usually what politicians and some people do. They go a little bit far with things. It is a huge concern. In 2014, when I got here, I really thought that they were going to outlaw certain tackling techniques. And so I told Bob, I said, I want to start to teach the rugby tackle. And the rugby tackle is more of a shoulder tackle. And of course, the Australian rules football team and the rugby teams from out in the world started making a ton of money with the NFL coming in and advising and consulting. We went ahead and did that and put that in at 15. And I told coaches on our side of the ball, because on tackling is when you get a huge part of using your head as a weapon and things like that. They made helmets so good today that basically it's encouraging kids. It encouraged kids to use it as a weapon, and that's what got into some bad techniques. So we started teaching the rugby. The next thing that we did when I took over as head coach is we bought the Guardian caps, and the Guardian caps are being used in the NFL, and they've been doing a study on those for the last 10 years. We've had them for 3 or 4 now. Since I became a head coach, I put them on, and we add more of those every year, and there is a movement now, and the Players Association just did it, but they got the NFL to agree that players can wear guardian caps in games now.
And what is a guardian cap?
A guardian cap is a protective cover that will slide over a helmet, and it's padded, and it basically will absorb that contact and that force. Now, if you talk to some helmet makers, because I've asked them, you can't wear those. That's not good. It will void our liability, and all that. Not really true. I think the science is saying that it is better. So that usage has been there. We are very well aware of it. Tell coaches never use the concept of a head being a way to, used to call it butt blocking, but it meant using your head and tackling, leading with your head, things like that. You cannot use that language. You can't teach that technique. So we're very conscious of it and work around it.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's been a thing and it's been addressed, but I want to get your take on it. Now we're going to have a little fun. I call this the dessert part, if you will, of the Moxie Talk. And I'm sure there's myriads of other pictures out there of you over the years, but these are the ones you shared with us, so I thought I would show these to the audience. This looks like a press conference.
It is. That's what you asked me about, the defining moment in my life.
That's it, isn't it?
Taking that job. Yeah. And not like I told you, I got emotional and everything in that press conference because of all the hard work that was put into that. It was kind of a culminating event. Yeah.
So roughly how many people on your coaching staff and players, I mean, are you at the top? How many roughly total?
How many total players?
Yeah, and coaching.
Counting the freshmen, you're dealing with about 225 to 230 kids and staff that you're dealing with. When we travel and go on the road, we'll take 100 on the road. It'll be 65 players. There will be support guys. Our managers and filmers do great work, and appreciate them, and then our trainers and everybody too.
I just wanted to share that with the audience.
Yeah.
It's not just
it's a big group.
It's not just 10 of you guys.
It's a big group.
And what's going on here?
Oh man, that's my guy right there. He played for me in Texas, in Beaumont, Texas. His name is Ennis Gaines. And Gaines was played a safety for me as a sophomore. And I told him early on down there, I told the head coach. Head coach did not want to bring him up to varsity ball. I did. And I told the head coach, I said, this guy's going to play on Sundays. I said, he's that good. And he had some maturing to do. And they didn't want to bring him up. But I kept telling him, you need to work and work because you have the body and the talent the good Lord's given to you. That day, it was Nathan Leslie and our wives, and we went up to watch Purdue play TCU, who he played for, Rondell Moore, Ennis Gaines. So two of those guys were there. We got to talk to both players before and after, and had a great time. TCU got them up there that day and beat them. And everything, and he told me he was going to beat him, and then Rondell told me he wasn't any good, and all that. But that's what I was mentioning a while ago about players. It's good. He went with the Packers for 3 years.
Oh wow, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. This is the state title.
It is raining, terrible day, and everything else. I'm off to the right in that. Somebody said, "Why didn't you get in the middle?" And that's kind of my philosophy. Everybody in that picture is just as important as I am.
Absolutely.
This is 14. This is the first year, the first team that we had. And the thing that's neat about that picture, I could go through there and name about 20 guys in there. The two to my left are one of my favorite players of all time, Nick Cardosi, which is Jay's son.
Well, I'll be. I didn't know
and
that.
I tell Jay when I see him, I said, man, that's one of the best football players I've ever coached.
Oh, wow.
He was 5'8", 200 pounds, and would knock you senseless.
Really?
I mean, he was a physical guy, an excellent football player. And just to his left is Isaac Martin, that just completed a career at U of L over there playing fullback for them, and just had a really good career, good solid. A lot of good guys in that picture.
That's great. This is one that I actually grabbed.
Well, it was, and that's your photograph, I believe.
Yes, that's your brother.
That's my brother.
Yeah.
And he's probably our biggest fan. Watched more film. The coaches always kid me and say he watched more film than I did. Yeah, and there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah.
Steve's an old coach. He's older than me. He
Okay.
was forced to kind of get out of coaching because he had pancreatitis and
Oh, wow.
and lost 2/3 of his pancreas and has had a really tough health life for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But love the fact he substitutes for Dad.
Yeah.
He's a guy that is my voice of reason.
Yeah.
You know, I can pick up the phone and call him and know and
great.
everything else. And he'll sit there and try to calm me down, settle me down if he needs to. But matter of fact, he was up in spring just to watch the spring game. But he's doing well, and he's still actively involved in the
Well, that's a
coaching
big deal, pancreas. You can't live without it.
No,
you can't get a new one at
no,
Walmart if
it
you know
was
what I
a
mean.
rough
I'm
go.
sorry. I'm glad he's still with us.
Yeah.
And this is you celebrating a little bit there.
Yeah, and again, 6A Coach of the Year,
Yeah.
and it was some group, I'm not sure the name of the group, but that's what I put that, they put that on Twitter. I said I did, I'm not on Twitter.
Right.
But Rob Saxton put it on Twitter, and the first thing Nathan Leslie says to me, "Who is that organization anyway?"
Right.
I said, "Thanks for the congratulations,
Yeah, right,
man. I appreciate
exactly.
it." You know,
And this is another, looks like a screenshot.
well, that is, and that's kind of with our seniors.
Okay.
That's our guys. We're graduating 26 of those guys, and all those guys will be getting out of there. And I tell you, great group of men,
great.
really quality people.
And this is your catchphrase from what I've heard in my research of you, so I'm glad you supplied that. Finish the job.
Well, I did. What I would say to the kids is finish.
Yeah.
Now and I would tell them, I would always say to them, because they came in after a game in the playoffs and said, you know, we did it, Coach, we finished. And I said, you finished that one. I said, the job's not done till Lexington.
Right.
And so we always kind of bring them back down to earth and focus them on that. But
That's great.
that's something that was created by the department there at Trinity High School and through the media department.
It's nice. It's a nice graphic. If someone were to ask you what's the single most positive contribution you made to humanity, what might that be? That's one of those meteor questions.
Yeah, we hit it. Joey Smith, Joseph. I can't call him Joey anymore.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith, having the support, he tried to tell me how much that I had changed him and put him in the position that he's in. I said, Joey, it's your hard work.
Yeah.
I said, you know, I maybe gave you some type of value about hard work, but I said, you put the work in. But the young men and I can't wait to see this senior class in terms of what they do, you know, and go on to be doctors or lawyers or whatever. And I've had a lot of guys do that, but I'm always extremely proud of them.
That's great. What keeps you going, man, when you're running on empty? I mean, you got to be, you know,
Yeah.
some days, you know, the motivation isn't there for whatever reason.
The competition,
Okay.
it really is. Somebody will throw out there a team that we're going to play or whatever and that type thing, you know, and that's what gets you motivated, because if a team beat you last year, the year before, you want to go back. It's not revenge, and a lot of people look at it that way. It's a way to basically come back and make it right, is what I would say, you know, and everything else. But I think the competition of it and the relationships.
You know, you mentioned earlier on the leadership question about listening, and that kind of sometimes dovetails into this next question. Could you describe in detail a particular scenario or instance where you utilized your own philosophy on leadership? It could be about the listening or not.
Well, this year with this football team, after the Male game, and Male got us pretty good. It's always been a tough place for Trinity to play. Our worst loss came over there in 15. Had a really good football team and went over there and things went south in a hurry. And that's a very talented football team every year. They have more talent than probably anybody in the state. Now, Frederick Douglass would rival that and everything else. But, you know, when we lost that game, that next Saturday morning, was a chance for me to put the seniors into a classroom after we lifted and ran and watched film, and sent everybody else home and went around the room. And you ask about what's your why. That's what I was asking. Why are you here? What do you want to accomplish? Because what I saw on the field that Friday night before didn't look like a lot of motivation from guys. and what are they wanting to accomplish. Trinity is a place sometimes when players come in there, they put the T on, they feel like they got those 28 championships. No, you didn't. Every senior class that goes through earns that legacy moment where they're going to leave Trinity with another championship. And I always tell the young men, what makes it special is that you guys are going to be connected for your whole life. And you'll be getting together in 10, 20 years, and you're going to be able to laugh at one another. A guy's going to show up bald, guy's going to show up 400 pounds, you know, and everything else. But you're always going to smile about the state championship that you won. But that Saturday, I went through and listened to them first. And then I had my say and basically told them what had to happen and had to change in order for us to accomplish the goals that they stated in that meeting that they wanted to accomplish. And we, you know, and I'm not going to sit here, I've been in this a long time, and say that that was the turnaround, that's what did it. Some media guys want to say that. We did go on to win 10 games, that is correct, and won the state title and everything else. But it was those young men putting the onus back on them to show up the next week and play well. And they did, and we got the ship going in the right direction.
What does Jay Cobb consider to be his biggest pet peeve? Do you have one? Maybe more than one, I don't know.
Oh yeah, well, you know, there's several. Don't want to get into all of them, but for football, it's just a guy that's only about himself. You know, I had one to give you just a brief. I had a young man come in, and he's a senior on this year's class, and he came in and he said, Coach, he didn't come in to me, he actually went to the administration and asked them if they could change the pregame music. And so I'm all of a sudden on an email chain from Doc Mullen all the way down saying this player wants to talk about the music that's being played before a game. And so I sent the email back and I said, who's doing this? And they gave me the young man's name, and so I called him in and I said, what are you doing? I said, we forgot what the why is. We're here to play.
Right.
Coach, you're to play. We're not here to select music. We're not here to do that. You're putting the cart before the horse. Talk about those things after you've gotten on the field and done your job. And so, you know, you still get situations like that that you have to deal with and everything else. But that's just part of the job description.
If someone asked you, what does Coach Jay Cobb stand for, what would you tell them? Not what they may think of you, but what would you tell them? Well,
you had me send you a bio and a resume. And in the first paragraph, and I'd say it, and it fits into Trinity well, and I said it before I came to Trinity, but integrity. I want people to feel like that I treated them fairly and honestly, and I listened, and I wasn't up here and them down there. And integrity is, I think, the only thing. And I told a young man that called me 3 weeks ago having problems in his life and was wanting kind of an easy way out. And it was not filled with integrity in terms of the direction that he was going. And I said, son, the only thing you've got is your integrity. And I said, if you do that, you're going to lose that. And I said, it may be bad right now. I said, but keep your integrity and keep working, and it will work out, I promise you. The problem today is instant gratification.
Right. Is there a difference today in your respective football career journey than it was when you first started? In other words, if you were to start today, what are the dramatic differences?
There's good and bad.
Okay.
From a career standpoint, there's so much more material out there for young coaches to get a hold of and to clinic and get. Those things were not available when I got into the business and started to work. And there was no recipe. So you had to come in and kind of like my dad said, you had to jump in there and you had to learn and that type thing. I think the good part of it is that's available to players and it's available to coaches today. The negative of it is what we've kind of already referenced here is social media and the micro look that everybody takes at every decision and everything that players make, coaches make, and then instant criticism. And if you're a guy that can't handle that, it's a wrong job.
It's not like this. You're somewhat commanding your own ship in a lot of ways. You've got a lot of authority and influence at Trinity. But at the same time, there's boards, trustees, and these kind of things, principals and whatnot. If you were granted 2 weeks right today, 14 calendar days, 10 business days, ideally, no technology, money's not an issue for the point of the question. Where do you go? What do you do? Who do you take with you?
Now, my question to that question is, what happens after that 2 weeks?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, so I changed something and everything else that I have a problem with, and then it goes back to the real world again, you know?
Yeah,
And
that's
that,
true.
no, if I had a magic wand, it would be something I would want to have a conversation with my father.
Yeah,
You know, if I
There we
could do something like that, that'd be good.
that'd be good. Well, we're going to get, that's the kind of where we're headed. If you alone could have dinner with anyone living or deceased, who would it be and why?
Well, it'd be Dad,
Yeah.
you know, and Mom. You know, that would be good.
So would you all cook dinner? Would it be what kind of? I'm trying to get
Mom
a flow.
would not be cooking.
Okay,
You know,
interesting.
Dad would find a restaurant, and we'd be going out doing that. We ate well.
Okay.
A family of 9. It was
wow.
there was an eat the fastest. Whoever eats the most, or whatever eats fastest, eats the most.
Yeah.
It was a competition that went on with that. But no, that conversation with them would be just to catch up in life and kind of tell them where we are and what they did.
Yeah.
You know.
That's great. And what do you think you'd eat? Were y'all steak and potato types?
It'd be a steak and potatoes. He was close enough to Chicago that he was all about a good steak.
Now, were you guys an unleaded family, or did you have a cocktail or a beer?
Oh
or?
no, yeah, we would occasionally have a libation,
There you
and
go.
Would be something there. Dad not as much,
Sure.
Mom not as much, but occasionally would. But yeah, we would have something there
That
to
sounds like it'd be a
celebrate.
lot of fun. I'd like to sit in the
Oh,
back and watch that
I
one.
promise you, it'd be a lot of fun. There'd be a lot of laughter.
So this is our signature question, Coach. Nobody gets out of the hot seat, as I call it. 472 guests before you. You know, God forbid you walk out of here today. It's your last day on earth. How do you want to be remembered by family, friends, the multiple hundreds of players and coaches that you've impacted, students? I mean, there's a lot of people. You're not done by any stretch.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, at first it starts with my 2 sons and my wife. Have I been a good husband? And I hope I have. And have I been the kind of father? And I'm extremely proud of my 2 boys. And in terms of what they did, I have one son that has 5 children, and he's just a great father.
That's great.
And my youngest, Tyler, just had his first child, which was a preemie. Came 7 weeks early, named Charlie, and he's a Vanderbilt grad, and he's working for Amazon down there. But both boys have done great, and are great fathers, and I'm extremely proud of them. So I want to be known for that, and I want all the guys. I told a parent this when I had to make a tough decision on a kid in spring. And I just didn't think the young man was ready to go through contact with us. And I told the parent, I treat all my players kind of like they're my sons. And I don't think your son is physically ready to take on what we're asking of him. And I said, I'm telling you that as a dad to a dad, so you will understand me and where I am. And that young man didn't come out yet with us on the field for the team, but he's working towards that goal and everything else. But I want players to feel like they've been treated fairly and they had opportunities. And I love the relationships with the players after they graduate and they go, and they come back. That's the thing that makes my day.
That's great. Well, Coach, I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am that you came on.
Well, I appreciate
as busy
it.
as you are. I really do. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. If you've enjoyed our discussion today with Coach Jay Cobb, and if it's inspired you, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is go out on the internet and type in MoxieTalk.com. We're all over all your social media platforms. Until next time, I'm Kirt Jacobs. Thanks for watching.